We got a champion here, folks. We've got the Lion Fight Women's North American Lightweight Champion, Taylor McClatchie. How you doing, Taylor?
I'm awesome. How are you doing?
I'm good. How does it feel to be a champion?
It feels great. It feels like forever ago now with all the quarantine and stuff to get home, but it feels pretty good.
So that's right. You fought Angela Whitney in Salina, Kansas
I
for
did.
Lion Fight 65. You were the Coleman event live on Fight Pass. Tell us, give
Right.
us some context as to what this opportunity means for you and your career in Muay Thai and combat sports competition.
Oh, it was awesome. It's been a while since I've even fought pro at all. Just with all the international opportunities that I had to represent Canada, I hadn't even fought pro since the beginning of 2019. So even to do that was amazing, and then to do it for Lion Fight, which is like the biggest Muay Thai organization in certainly North America, probably in the world. Do it for them and to win a title for them was huge, really. And then to be main event as a female fight is always a really special opportunity as well.
For sure. And you won the match via unanimous decision.
I did,
Tell
yeah.
us, what was your plan going into this fight?
We worked a lot on just fighting smart. Based on what we've seen from Angela, she's a very active fighter, very busy and like very forward moving. So just to not get caught up in that bull rush and not to meet her halfway and play that game. And we tried to work some footwork, tried to work some angles, not get tied up in clinch. Really, not all of it came out, and that's okay.
How did you stop yourself from not getting caught up in what you just described? You mentioned the footwork, we're working on the footwork. Elaborate on that. What exactly did you do to avoid getting caught in that storm?
Honestly, I think between rounds 3 and 4 and probably 4 and 5, Crew Gerald from Mafa out in Toronto, he came and cornered me. He looked at me and he got his finger like right in my face. There's a picture of it. And he's like, "You need to stop clinching." Because we would get tied up on the ropes and she would push me up against the ropes, and it was really even in that context. I think it wasn't obvious who was winning or who was losing. So he just like he really got in my face and was like, "You need to not do that." So then I stayed on the outside. I threw low kicks, and I think that's really what made the difference. I haven't watched my own fight yet.
You haven't watched it?
No.
Wow. Why is that? Why is that? Why haven't you watched it yet?
I always feel like right after a fight, as the person who is in the ring, it feels so messy and so ugly. Like fighting is generally not pretty. And it feels so messy when you're in there. Then I'm like, I don't want to see it. I worked on all these smart technical things all through fight camp. You feel like a champ. And then you go in there and you're like, well, that was a disaster. It usually takes me like a couple months to want to turn it on and want to see it.
Okay. So you do eventually watch it.
Eventually, I usually cave. Yeah.
Okay. Interesting. Tell us a little bit more about your Angela, because she seemed like she was obviously taller than you, and she seemed really physically strong. How much did you know about her going into this fight, and have you trained with her before? Have you crossed paths anywhere?
So we were both on the Canadian and American teams respectively. My first world level event was in Cancun in 2018 for the World Championships, and she was on that team, and I believe she medaled bronze or silver at that. And then we were both on the teams for Pan Am's in Argentina, and then we were both on the teams for Worlds in Thailand. So we had gone to a lot of the same events. So I had talked to her like in passing socially at those events. Like I knew she was like a tall, strong girl. I'd seen her podium at all those events. So I knew she was good. Like she had the accolades to back it all up. She is a bigger fighter than me. I fought those events at 125 pounds and she fought at 140, I believe, for most of those. So I knew she was going to be bigger than me, which is not common for me. So we were fighting at 132, which is a weight class up for me. So I expected her to be bigger than me and potentially stronger than me, at least have that like leverage and height. So we really wanted to be sure that I clinch people. I like to clinch. I'm pretty good at it. We wanted to make sure that if clinching wasn't working because she was bigger, taller, stronger, whatever, that we had alternatives.
Now, were you nervous prior to this match? Do you generally get nervous prior to a big competition or a big fight?
So nervous, always. People always ask, like, does it get better? And I, not as far as I know.
It's interesting because I obviously watched the fight live on Fight Pass, and you seem like very calm. At least to this spectator over here, you seem very calm, and you were smiling, and you seemed like it was just another day at the office or the lab or whatever. You know what I mean? So you're saying you get nervous. Do you have any tricks to calm your nerves or any sort of rituals you do pre-fight to kind of zone in and focus?
I find that I'm really nervous. Like the weeks before, I try not to think about the fact that I actually have to go fight a human. But then like the fight week when you're there and at the hotel and there's nothing to distract yourself, I get really nervous then. And like, if you told me that my opponent was in I actually don't want a car accident, but like a car accident the day of the fight, and they're like, "Oh, sorry, you don't have to fight," I'd be like, "Perfect, cool, I'm out. I'm gonna go home. It's fine." But then I find as soon as like warm up starts and you start doing Muay Thai again and like flowing through things, and I find that really reminds me that I'm actually really good at this. I actually worked really hard. I know how to do this, and then as soon as warm up starts, I think I calm down a lot. And then walk out, my song plays. That's fun. I can get to the ring. And then once you're in the ring, it's like small problems one at a time. She's doing this, so I have to react. Like there's not time to actually be nervous once you're there. Then it's just really, really hard sparring, and I know how to do that. So really it's before. It's like the week of that things get really crazy in my head. And then once the fight part starts, it's just not so bad.
What I know people have asked you this a zillion times, Taylor. What motivates you to compete and fight? What is it? What's that thing that makes you want to go in there and compete?
Yeah, I don't like fighting. Like fighting don't love it. I feel like I'm ripping off George St. Pierre, but like fighting's terrifying. It's hard. It's the worst. It's terrible. But like winning's fun and winning's the best. And then training is also fantastic. Like I like working hard. I like applying myself in that aspect, like the diet, the training, the dedication, all those things. I like all that. But the actual fight, like, don't love that. That's just something that I have to do to prove that it was worth it.
Now, you're obviously someone who's successful in the ring. You've had the opportunity, as you mentioned, to fight abroad internationally. You fought as an amateur, now as a pro, and now you've won this big brand's first ever women's North American lightweight champion. What, in terms of your own personal, I guess the question is, how do you measure success? What's your metric if you were to measure success? How do you measure success? And I'm asking that outside of the context of combat sports, and I just mean in life in general.
I don't know. Like I don't know what the thing that I'll be like, yeah, I'm good. That's it. I'm good. I'm ready. I don't know. I feel like I really enjoy the insane amount of effort that needs to go in to combat sports, say specifically, and I think that's why I'm attracted to it. Like that insane amount of effort that you have to put in. And then you go and you test your skills, in this case, against someone who in theory has put in like that same amount of effort as you and wants it. And is also it's like a trained athlete. And like that success there is just such a validation for all the things that you've done to get there. And then as I'm finding, the more and more you do it, the more and more the rewards are for your success. Okay. I don't really know what I would define successful as, because like I got a master's degree. That's cool. I don't define that as successful really at all. But like I want a title. cool. There's always more. You can always fight up.
Right. No, and it's interesting because if I can paraphrase what you're saying, you're defining success as enjoying what you're doing, having the work ethic to push yourself through and attain goals along the way.
Yeah, and they always get bigger. They always get bigger, and I think that's just a testament to all the work that you put in and the small successes that you have, that they just start stacking up.
Right, and you mentioned your master's degree. It's interesting because in the I know you haven't watched the fight yet.
They were big on it.
Sorry.
They were really big on it in the commentary.
Oh yeah, they were, because your competitor Angela Whitley. Whitley. Yes, Whitley. Pardon me.
Yeah.
She herself is also an academic. I think she's studies in environmental science or something like that.
Yeah.
PhD. Right. And it was interesting because in the commentary they were really highlighting that, and which makes sense, because it's really fascinating to see high level competitors in a combat sport that is very tough and brutal and challenging. Muay Thai, of course, professional Muay Thai. But also these two are also, academics. They're both scientists. Do you see a correlation between, what you do in your scientific research and combat sports? Do you ever tap into your Muay Thai when you're in the lab? Is there a crossover, or are they two distinctly different parts of your life?
I think a lot of the work ethic that I have developed, because I like Muay Thai a lot, I like training, I like all the things that I have to fit into my life to be a good athlete. I think that really translates over into being a good scientist, or a good anything, really. But in terms of actual skills, zero. In fact, Muay Thai probably makes me a worse scientist at this point. Don't tell my boss that, for sure. No. But I have been known to slack on my job. I took 4 years to do a 2-year degree because I was training all the time. But at the same time, when things need to get done, I know how to get them done, because I want to fit everything in.
Fair enough. And I mean, I think a lot of people take a lot of time to do, their postgraduate degree. Some people do it in 2 years. Some people, I've known some that's taking them almost, 4, 5, 6 years to do it. I mean, it's, success is an inside job, and happiness is an inside job, and it takes time, I suppose, for people to focus in and zone in on their goals. You mentioned earlier on when you were talking about the fight that round 3 and 4 where things went a little bit, they were dangerous rounds because you were getting caught up in the clinch, and your coach there had asked you to focus in on and take a different approach. Can you break down for us, from your perspective, from what you recall, a round by round sort of assessment of each round, just giving us high level summary from your point of view?
Okay. Given that I haven't watched it, this is all from memory, so might not be right. I didn't think that I won round 1. I went back to the corner. I was like, that was no good. Let's not do that. I remember she caught me early with something. I don't know what. It made my lips swell up. She caught me early with something, and I was like, don't like that. And I think we got tied up into a clinch, and I know whenever we clinched, she was pushing my back up against the ropes and cross facing me really hard, which was effective. And we were kind of trading knees back and forth. Nothing of any effect, though. I was hitting her, she was hitting me, but nothing that really mattered. I think I swept her in round 1, and I don't sweep anyone, so that was a big deal. I think I body slammed her just a little bit.
Yeah.
That was fun. I did look for a highlight of that, and in real life, it wasn't nearly as cool as I felt.
No, it looked great, man. It was awesome.
In my head, it was like a really big slam, and then I watched it, and I was like, oh, that was just a little one. And then I think round 2 is very similar. I think I walked back to the corner after round 2, and I think I said that was better, because I felt like I was more active, at least. I'm not sure whether anything that either of us threw had more effect, but I felt like I was being more active, and I knew that mattered. but I also knew that I had spent a lot of time with my back against the ropes. And I know when we do like amateur tournaments or anything, we're always told that if your back's against the ropes, you're losing in the eyes of like American judges. Like if you're not moving forward, you're losing. And I was like, I hope they know that, like, I think I can be winning from that position.
Mm-hmm.
So I think I carried that mentality like through the whole fight, that I was like, my back's on the ropes. I think I'm landing more, but they might still think I'm losing because I'm not moving forward. So that, I think that was 1, 2, 3 was a lot of that. Some strikes on the outside, some low kicks. She didn't hit me on the outside very much. I tried to hit her, and I think that made the difference. And then round 4 and 5, my coach basically told me that like it's very close, so you need to make it look like you're winning, like to make it very obvious to the judges that you are winning.
Right.
So I really tried to get out of clinches. I tried to enter with punches and throw kicks, low kicks. I said to the commentators in my pre-fight interview that I wanted to really mess my shins up in this fight, because I've never left a Muay Thai fight and had really sore shins, because I've always clinched people. So I wanted to just kick her on the outside and like leave the fight and be like, yeah, my shins are broken. Perfect. Great. I can rest for 2 weeks now. So I honestly don't remember what I did in round 5 specifically, but I remember stepping in with like 1-2s, uppercut cross, hook cross, and like they were not impressive combinations. They're not combinations I'm really proud of, but I remember making a conscious effort to throw them anyway. Yeah, so it was just a progression towards just being like, hey, leave it out there, it's close. And I think she got more tired than I did, because based on what she said, she cut a lot of weight and got very, very tired by the end of the fight. So that was
no, she definitely
for me.
You know, she definitely looked visibly tired in round 4 and 5. What speak to us on the dynamic with the coaches, with the coach in the corner. How important is that relationship when a fighter is competing and having that honest flow of communication between coach and fighter?
I think it's super important, because like if you're not functioning on a super high level in terms of like planning, am I fighting? Am I doing smart technical things? Probably. But like, I know that clinch is close, but personally, I have a really hard time making that jump to, you need to not clinch and therefore do something else. Like, I don't make that connection for myself. So having someone sit me down and be like, this is what you need to do. Don't do that, do this. And like, really like look me in the eyes and tell me that's important is huge for me. So to have someone that's there that I trust implicitly to tell me what I need to do, that I'm like, yes, sir, is really important. I think I know I don't necessarily listen in the corner, but to have someone give those like big bits of advice, and to have someone that I trust enough to be like, yes, is super important.
For sure. What's the main takeaway for you in this fight? What are some of the things that you've learned about yourself in this match? And what do you plan to do now as you head back to training and defending this title?
I would like to work on my comfort on the outside. I thought we worked it a lot this camp. So I'm honestly a little bit disappointed by how I felt on the outside. I didn't feel like my boxing was confident, I guess. I know I hit her. I remember landing some clean punches and kicks actually, but I didn't necessarily put them together as well as I could have, or pressure with them when I did hit as well as I think I could. I'm not sure why that is, but I know that's something that I would like to work on in the future. That was my first 5-round title fight, so that was something that I was a little bit nervous for. I didn't know how that was going to feel. I have fought 5 2-minute rounds, which is a glorious way to fight. But 5 3s I've never done. So that was good to just get that out of the way and be like, I didn't die. I didn't need to sit down in the middle of round 5 at any point. So that was a good thing, just as a mental thing to not have to think about ever again. And I don't know if you watched it, you probably saw my face when they read the decision.
Right.
I didn't think I had won 4 out of 5 rounds. I didn't think so. So when they read the decision, I was like, oh no, they're gonna take this from me. I didn't win.
Right.
So like, just as a mental note that like, it's a fight. It's gonna feel messy. It's gonna feel ugly, and doesn't mean you're losing necessarily just because it's not one-sided.
Right.
And I never want to make that face on camera ever again.
Hey, whatever, man. You won. You're the champ now. I'm gonna ask you.
I want to look like I won, though.
Well, I mean, it's you know, I think because you're in the battle, it must be very hard to kind of, you know, see yourself from the outside, right? You're standing there. You've got a camera, multiple cameras directed at you. You know what I mean? It's you're in the moment, right?
I was doing that mental math. I was like, okay, well, I spent round 2 on the ropes. I spent round 1 on the ropes. It's already 2 rounds down. So that means if they're calling it 4 for me, 4 and 1, then that's not the math I have. So it must be wrong. I must have lost. Like, that's ridiculous. That's not how it works. Just wait. Patience. Be patient.
Are those the voices? Is that your brain? What you're hearing?
My brain was doing very fast mental math.
Nice.
And I was like, well, that's not my math. So shit.
Hey, do you write about your fights? Do you do any sort of like journaling, or do you document any stuff in the form of you know, be it a journal or short stories or anything like that?
Pre-fight, I do journal. Post-fight, I generally don't. I usually when I get back into training, will like take a page in my new journal and be like, here's what I liked, here's what I didn't like. But it's not any kind of not interesting writing. Like it's not a short story at all. It's like, here's some pros, here are some cons, here's what we're gonna work on. Right. Go.
So it's very focused on training essentially, and
yeah, training points that I want to remember when I'm feeling like hot shit in the gym again. Like in a week when I'm like hitting the bag, feeling really good about myself, and I can be like, here's the things that you thought you were good at, but you weren't. So.
Do you do any free writing in general? Or is it mainly like, okay, it's that sort of writing? Now, what was the vibe like in Salina, Kansas during the match? Could you hear the crowd or the people? What was the energy like there?
It was really good. There were people, so that was really nice. Yeah. I honestly didn't see how many people until it was over, but I think it was like a table set up. Mm-hmm. So no stands, but just a bunch of tables set up. But they were definitely cheering. I heard some obnoxious drunk people yelling because we were the last fight, so they made it to that point. Right. So yeah, it was definitely, there was a vibe at least, which was really nice to have people. My anecdote is that we went out for Japanese grill one night, I think the night of weigh-ins, and we ended up sitting next to a couple at our little hibachi thing, and we were just started talking. They're from a town over, and they actually came to the fight after. Just they'd never seen a Muay Thai fight in their life, and they showed up in like just ready to cheer me on because they sat next to me while we had dinner, and
That's awesome.
it was so cute. It was the best. And they stayed for the whole fight. They saw all the event. Like they welcome to Muay Thai. It was amazing.
That is amazing. Did you give them? Did they ask for an autograph or anything like that?
We took a picture after.
Okay, that's very cool.
We're Instagram friends now, of course.
There you go. And how, in terms of audiences, do they impact your performance while you're fighting in there, or do you just zone them out and listen to your coach while you're in the chaos?
Every now and then I hear something, and it's usually something mean. And I'll like register it, but then I'll be vaguely upset that I registered it because like I'm not supposed to be listening to the drunk man like 3 tables over. I don't need to hear him. That's not helpful. That's not brain space I need to spend. So I didn't hear much. I do remember a man yelling, "Stop hugging each other," like really, really loud. And I was offended because like, A, we're clinching and it's great. I love clinch. B, shut up, this is Muay Thai. And C, like, focus, Taylor, come on. I heard, and like at another fight that I was at, I heard while I was doing my Y crew, I heard someone yell, "Make it rain." Because I guess I was doing a rain dance. Like, I don't know. But like, it's little things like that I'm upset about it. And I'm like, focus, man.
Yeah, I would imagine those are fans that are probably, they're fans, of course, but you have all sorts of fans that
Yeah.
might not fully grasp the sport or understand aspects of the sport. And
No, like it's the same guy that's gonna yell like "stand up" when they're like in UFC when they're on the ground. Like, it's the same guy.
Totally. And sometimes, they're drunk or under the influence of who knows of what, like,
yeah.
But now that you're this you're the brand champion for this division, do you feel additional pressure being the first ever champion for this brand? That's on Fight Pass. That's being, their events are being broadcasted, streamed online. That is worldwide, of course, and you're getting a lot of attention and so on. And you've competed internationally, so you're exposed to that sort of pressure. But this is a little different now, I would imagine. How do you feel about that? What goes through your mind now that?
I don't. You're right. It's super different from like competing for Canada is very cool in its own right, but it's not the same kind of audience. Like the live stream coming out of Argentina, like just my mom is watching that pretty much.
Your mom and a bunch of people from Ottawa, of course.
Right, like my teammates and my mom are watching, but like that's pretty much it. Whereas this, like, it's bigger and it's really cool, and we're hopefully gonna set up like a world title shot off this, and that's huge. It just means that like the caliber goes up, so I need to make sure that I can rise to that occasion every time. It's a challenge, but at the same time, like, it's again those little building blocks, right? You want to work your way up. So I want to be able to take on the people that want to take my belt, and then also fight up for a world title or a European title or an international, like whatever, all those things. So like it opens doors, and that's cool too.
Big time. And do you ever get asked questions in regards to, like, obviously, you've competed in this sport, and a lot of people are always jumping to conclusions and saying, "Oh, this person should fight in MMA." Have you ever had that sort of scenario where someone says, "Hey, when are you going to cross over into that sport?" And I ask that because a lot of elite, be it strikers or grapplers, will not eventually, but on the amateur stream, you're seeing more and more of this elite level national team members for wrestling, judo, boxing, crossing over into mixed martial arts, as well as striking sports like Muay Thai. Have you ever had someone ask you if you would consider that crossover?
Yeah, all the time. It's all the time, which is cool. And for a long time, I was really opposed to that. I was like, no way, never. Like I don't have any ground game. I could never compete at the level that I can compete at in Muay Thai. But I picked up some jiu-jitsu over quarantine, started training a little bit, which is like very fun. It's really fun to be bad at something. Like, to learn jiu-jitsu and be terrible at it is really fun. It's like a whole different kind of learning. I don't have that in Muay Thai anymore. Like, Muay Thai is, the stakes are high, first of all. And like I'm learning minute details of things, and like relearning techniques that I've learned 1,000 times before, and getting reps in, which is great. But jiu-jitsu, I'm like, hello, I don't know what to do with any parts of my body. Please help. And it's so much fun. It's so much fun. And I find that, like, because I know I'm not good at it, I find the stakes a lot lower. Like, I'll tap 1,000 times. It's fine. But learning those skills. So, I mean, I'm no longer fully opposed to MMA.
Interesting.
But
Okay.
I'm fighting modified rules in the fall for Infusion. For in Thailand, I'm doing an Infusion reality show.
Wow.
And it is modified caged Muay Thai. So that will be a fun, like, little bridge sport to see how that goes.
Interesting. And this is a done deal. You're going to do this thing, yeah?
Yeah. So it's Infusion reality. They've done, I want to say, like 7, 8, 9 seasons already. They
Okay.
did one female season a few years ago. Ashley Nichols was actually on it. And a lot of the girls that are huge names now were on it, but that was a pure Muay Thai season. But it's like, as far as I can tell anyway, it's kind of like tough. Like, you live in a house, and then you all fight each other. But the rule set that I'm going to fight under, they're calling it extreme combat. So it's caged Muay Thai in 4-ounce gloves with standing submissions.
Interesting. Wow.
Yeah. So I guess I don't know the details of how this is actually going to work, but I guess if you start a submission from standing and you fall down, you have 15 seconds to finish it, and then they stand you back up and you keep doing Muay Thai.
Wow.
So
That's a really interesting rule set there. Are you do you find, as far as your jiu-jitsu training, are you doing gi jiu-jitsu or no gi? Are you doing submission wrestling style jiu-jitsu?
I mean,
That's wrestling.
so far I've done pretty much whatever. Before I jumped into fight camp, I was just training jiu-jitsu like a recreational person. Like, I just show up to whatever class was on. And then during my fight camp, I kept up with jiu-jitsu a little bit. I find it like a really nice, almost active recovery, because I'm so bad at it. Like, I'm not good enough to get super tired or super sore. All I do is lose. So like on my Saturday, when I'm beat up from the week and my mind can't take Muay Thai, I was doing a little bit of jiu-jitsu on Saturday to be active. And I find like the strength that I'm getting from the grappling on the ground was really helpful in clinch. I felt like my clinch strength had improved greatly, and I can only assume it's from grappling. But Crew Jeff and I were talking about, I guess before lockdown, we were talking about getting into jiu-jitsu pretty hard for a couple months after, like, when we went back, just to get those skills there in preparation for the fall, to go grapple some girls standing.
That's awesome. And even in your fight, you had one big slam. And I remember, I watched it and I remember thinking to myself, wow, like, because I love throws and slams, judo,
Yeah.
sambo, wrestling, sort of throws. And I'm like, man, like, you know what, like that, my mind immediately went to, like, grappling, because you were, I think you were in half guard or whatever.
That's
like, oh, I wonder if she does any. So clearly, you've been cross training, and your there's a possibility that you would consider.
Yeah, I mean, you look at some of the female champions, the women that are doing really well in UFC high level. I mean, you look at the weekend, like Valentina was a multiple time IFMA champion. Like,
right.
she's from like the world circuit in Muay Thai.
Right.
And like, most of the female fighters that are doing really well have a really strong Muay Thai background. So that's kind of cool. I mean, there's certainly a very big path there. It'd be interesting. I'm not opposed to trying it. Yeah, gonna see how getting punched in the face with 4-ounce gloves goes in the fall. We'll see about that. Especially in a tournament, it's gonna get wild, I think.
Yeah, and all the drama. How are you going to deal with all the antics and the reality TV drama? Because you seem like a very chill person. Like, I don't know you personally and all that, but you, from what I've seen, you seem like a very relaxed, chill, no drama sort of person. How are you going to deal with all these drama instigators?
I don't know. I think the social aspect is what I'm most concerned about. So there's an 8-woman extreme combat tournament. And then I think there's a 4-man MMA tournament and something else and I think 2 other male fights. So there's going to be 8 women and 8 men all living in the same house. So for sure, like no drama would ensue in that ever.
It's a soap opera, man. It's gonna be.
Yeah, it's for sure set up that way.
That's awesome.
But I don't. Yeah, I'm social. The social interaction is probably the scariest part of that. Going and training with strangers is fine, but like living with strangers, I don't know if I'm ready.
Man, I think it's gonna make good reality TV. And is this is in Thailand, you said?
Yeah, so it's in Koh Samui.
Okay, and when is this happening? Like, I mean, because we're in a pandemic and plans are shifting.
I think it's in October. It's scheduled to shoot for 2 weeks in October.
Okay.
I will hopefully go for like a month or so early, just to live in Thailand, to train in Thailand. I've never been. I've never really trained. I went for Worlds, but that was pretty much just for the tournament. So I'd like to go and get some training in and acclimatize before being shipped off to hang out with strangers.
That's awesome. I'm looking forward to that. Now,
it's gonna be fun.
Yeah, no doubt. If we could go back to I have one question in regards to your fighting, your approach to fighting in Muay Thai. What 2 or 3 characteristics would you use to describe your approach to combat?
I would like to think. I think I am. I don't know. I've never said that I'm an exceptional athlete. I think I'm just I'm an obsessive person. I like to do things well. So when I do them, I do all the things. And that makes me good at them. Like I never set out to be like any kind of athlete, let alone a professional athlete, let alone a professional champion. Like none of those things, like there was never a plan. So I think that you can call it determination, you can call it obsessiveness, you can call it stubbornness. All those words all really mean the same thing. And I think that's why I became good at this is just because of that. Because I'm whichever one of those you want to pick is the least offensive, that makes me a technical athlete, and that makes me a fit athlete. And then all those positive words kind of come off that, just because I put in the time and the effort, because I'm not going to do something halfway. But yeah, that was never the goal. I never came into a gym and was like, yes, I want to fight. I want to be an athlete. Like, no, I was just like a kind of fat kid that came into the gym and never left.
Wow. Interesting. So how long do you see yourself competing in these sports? Because longevity is obviously,
absolutely.
I don't want to say it's I don't know. Well, what are your thoughts on longevity in these sports? You're young. I think you're in your late 20s. You're what, 28, 29?
I've got 6 more good months. I'm 29.
29. Okay, right on.
Yeah.
So what's the plan? Well, what's the vision? How long do you see yourself competing at this high level?
I feel like, and not physically, just in my head, I feel like women often have very good careers up until like through their 35, 36, 37. Like you see women progressing and doing very well up till that. I don't know whether that's, we take less damage, I think, is a huge part. We don't tend to beat each other as aggressively as, say, 170 pound, 180 pound, 200 pound man does. So I feel like that really lends itself well to longevity in the sport. We tend to often be more technical. And I think that helps us do well through a little bit later. Whereas a lot of male athletes I know start having issues by then. So we'll see how I feel. I had my first gray hair the other day, like 2 days ago. So I had a small crisis about that. But so far I feel great. I feel like I am still reaching like new athletic peaks. I am stronger, I am faster, I am more athletic than I have ever been. So when that stops being the case, then we'll start reassessing. But so far so good. it'll be interesting to see how to make a living as an adult in this sport goes. Because that's just something that has to happen, start making grown-up goals. But at the same time, I'm not stopping fighting anytime soon. So we'll see.
Fair enough. And what would you say is your funniest or most memorable, actually? What is, or two-part question. What's the most memorable moment you've had in your career thus far? And tell us the funniest moment or experience you've had in your fight career.
Okay, the funniest one I'm going to have to think about. But the most memorable moment was definitely getting a knockout in my pro debut at Madison Square Garden. That was a pretty fantastic night. It was the best. So I fought my pro debut for Glory at Madison Square Garden in 2018, the end of 2018. And I won about 2 minutes in by horrifying head kick KO. I thought she died. I cried in the ring. I cried in the ring because like her eyes were open. It was gross.
What? Oh, for real? Sorry, I don't mean to laugh. You legit thought she died?
I didn't think she died, but like I was ecstatic, so I was really happy. And then I realized that her eyes were open and like her toes were curled up, and that like she wasn't getting up. So then I was like really upset for her. So like I was in the neutral corner, like crying, laughing, snotting, like all the things at the same time. And then like she was fine. She's fought it. She's fine. So that was huge. My parents flew into New York City to watch. Like my aunt and uncle came down. That was a huge moment for me. I also like she had 10 pro fights or something, and it was my debut, so I was pretty sure I was gonna die. So like it was a very very good night.
I've seen that, and even there's a picture of you where she's lying down and you.
It's on my wall right here.
Yeah, let's see it. Do you mind? Yeah, man, that right there is like I remember seeing that and I was like, damn, that like had you retired after that? I mean,
that's what I thought. I thought that I was like, have I peaked? Is this it? Should I stop now? Like I don't know.
You know what I mean? Like that right there.
We're done.
Like, it's epic. Like that is an epic photo, man. That's an incredible moment.
Definitely. Yeah.
And now the second part of that question is, what's the funniest or memorable moment, if you have one, or if not funniest, what's that moment where you if you've almost considered quitting the sport altogether or the competition aspect of the sport? Have you had that moment before? Sorry, I know it's a personal question, but
no, it's okay. I don't have a funny one. I'm gonna keep thinking about it and I'll just blurt it out if I get one.
Sure.
But I haven't had a moment where I'm like, this is it, I'm done. I should just hang it up. I've had a few losses, but none that made me like really rethink what I'm doing in my life. Like a couple of them I've had, I want to say I have 6 losses. 2, I think they were better than me that day. Like they were better than me, hard stop. I fought 2 people that they were better than me. But the other ones, I'm like, I didn't do what I was supposed to do, and that sucks. And that's good for them. They were better than me that day. And I think those ones are the ones that you think about more. Where you're like, what if I had ... like anything.
Right.
Whereas the ones where you're just like, that person was better than me, period. And that's just what you want to get to, which is okay too. But yeah, no, I've never had, I feel like it usually comes after losses that people are like, maybe I'm not doing the right thing anymore. Like I said, I feel like I'm still getting better every fight camp. I think the last fight camp was the best one I've ever had. So definitely still feel like we're doing a good job.
What made it the best fight camp? What was it?
I think it was one of the most intelligent fight camps I've ever done. Because of COVID, there were less volume of training. usually I will show up, I'll do all the recreational classes twice a day, and then do the extra work on the side and do the pad work and do everything.
Overtraining.
Overtraining, absolutely. And training just like to get the hours in, to feel like I was doing enough. But for this camp, that wasn't necessarily an option. So we did much more focused training sessions and more focused on me and Mateo who were fighting. There wasn't 30 other athletes with fights coming up, because we have a very big fight team at our gym, which is usually great. So many sparring partners, so many people to work with, but there's also so many people with different wants and needs. Whereas like our fight camp was very focused on goals for me and for Mateo, which is selfish, but it made the fight camp very intelligent. So like smaller sessions, more focused. I also didn't have a lot of weight to cut because it was up a weight class. So I felt like I was showing up. I said it to a bunch of people, but like, as opposed to showing up being like, I'm here, I want to die, but I'm physically present. I was showing up to fight camp, to training sessions, like fed with carbs in my body, being like, hi, I'm ready to do my best and like to get better this session. And that was a really cool feeling, to go through a whole fight camp with like thoughts. I was showing up to training sessions and I could think things, not just like try not to die, which was very cool. It's easy to be confident when you feel good.
For sure. And what's it like training with Crew Jeff? To tell us a little bit about New Era.
Oh, hi.
Hey, who's that?
It's my cat. Hi, buddy.
What's the cat's name?
His name is Inigo Montoya from the Princess.
Inigo Montoya.
From the Princess Bride.
Okay, yeah. Interesting. Yeah. I've never seen the Princess Bride, but hello, Inigo Montoya. Wow, what a cool looking cat.
He's very handsome. He's also very needy. Time to go.
Very needy. He can stay in there. It's all good. He can stay in the shot. I was just screaming. Yeah, I was asking about Crew Jeff. Well, what's it like being coached by Crew Jeff? And what's the vibe like at New Era Combat Sports?
I mean, I love it. It's an environment that I know I thrive in. Just old school, man. We work really hard. Sometimes I think maybe to a fault, but I think this fight camp really let us think more and plan some things and have a timeline and be a little bit more organized. So I think I really appreciate the effort that Jeff put into this camp, especially during COVID and like all the weird restrictions and what can you do and what can't you do and at what time, and with whom. So like I really, really appreciate that we got such a good fight camp in such a weird time. But I mean, I've been training with Jeff, I want to say since I think my fourth fight. I started going to fight teams back when we were with Owama, and I started going to fight teams with Crew Jeff for my fourth fight. So I mean, that's a lot of fights. Like we've essentially gotten in the ring 56 times. Like it's a lot. So we've done a lot of things. We've traveled. We've fought everybody. So I think we have a really good rapport. And I really vibe with his style, that full dedication, everything you got kind of style, because that's how my little brain works.
That's cool. And what can you tell us in terms of what sort of advice would you give to any aspiring Muay Thai practitioner who wants to compete, or current, competitor who wants to attain competition success? What sort of advice would you give? What general advice would you give this person?
Anybody that was looking to get into competition, I would ask them to think about whether they really like it. Like all the pieces of the things that they're doing, because everybody likes winning. Everybody likes being on top, or even being the center of attention when you're going to fight. But like the pieces that go into fighting they're not fun, really. So if you don't enjoy them, you're going to have a really bad time. And I think that might be why so many people have one or two fights and they're like, no, thank you.
Mm.
But I think the people that have the most longevity in fighting and in competing are the ones that like all those little pieces that maybe aren't necessarily fun, but you really like them. Like deep down inside, you like that, the game that you're playing, all those pieces that you have to put together.
How would you say, like, when you see the current landscape as far as combat sports for Muay Thai and how it's developing? I guess I'm speaking more on the amateur side. What are your thoughts on the future of the sport further developing here in Canada and internationally? Where do you see that opportunity for growth, or do you see more limitation, or do you see more opportunity for generating more competitors, but particularly more female competitors in the sport?
I think it's really growing. I mean, even just since I started, the number, especially like even if you look at Ontario or Ottawa on like a small scale,
right?
The number of fight events that we have or we're having in the before times was crazy. We have fights that like we'd have a huge event at least once a month in Ottawa.
Right.
And that's so much opportunity for local fighters to get experience. And then if you want to say within a 6-hour drive, which is like what we were doing pretty consistently for my amateur fights, going to Toronto, going to Mississauga, going to Brampton.
Right.
That's so much opportunity for people to fight and to fight each other and to collect that experience, because that's huge. Just the number of times that you get in the ring is such a huge advantage that you can have in the sport. So I think the more that grows, the more it becomes accessible to women. Because if you're only looking at 1 or 2 fight events with 1 or 2 female fights per card, if that makes it really hard for women to get matches. And I think that's the limiting factor, because there's so many women that train, so many. Not all of them want to fight. That's cool. Not all of them want to compete at all. That's cool. But those that do, it can be so hard to get matches because there's the numbers just so much smaller. And then if you can only put 1 or 2 of those on your shows, then it gets really hard. And then you look at women that are either very small or a little bit bigger, and that's even harder. And that can be really limiting to people ever deciding if they want to have a longer career in the sport. So more people's better, I think, is what I'm trying to say. And like the tournaments you were having, provincials, nationals, I think those especially are huge for women and female fighters to get that experience, because there's just more people.
For sure. Now, the last question I have for you, by the way, I really enjoying this interview here. In fact, I was hoping to ask all these science-related questions for real, but
Yeah.
I'm going to save that for some other time, because
not in a rush. I'm all yours.
But I'll get to the science some other time, because okay. I've taken almost 50 minutes of your time. And the last question I have for you is, what's the best piece of advice you've ever been given when it comes to competition in Muay Thai? What's that one piece of advice that's either changed your approach to fighting, training, or inspired you again to find a deeper appreciation for the art? What is it? What's that one piece of advice? I'm sure there's more than one, maybe, or maybe there isn't, but you tell us.
I don't know. I wish I had some sort of like a moment when someone told me something and I was like, yeah, for sure, I can do this. And that's never really happened. I've taken every fight going forward. Like I went 20-0 as an amateur for my first 20 fights. And like, I went through every fight being like, this is the fight where they find out that like, I'm not good at this. Like that it was all a fluke up till now. Wow. So I'm like, that carries through, right? It's like, I've had 60 fights now, wow. But I'm not sure that's ever like really gone away, where I'm like, this is the one where they find out that like, I don't really know what I'm doing.
By the way, you're hilarious. You're very funny, by the way.
I do know what I'm doing though. Like I know that in my heart, I know that I train hard, I work hard, I'm fit, I'm smart. Like I know all those things.
Right.
But I'm like, well, what if tonight's the night that I die in front of all my family and friends, and like that's it. This sport has like a really small frame of reference, right? So you're only as good as your last fight. If you lose your last fight, people might not remember you. You lose a few in a row, people are going to forget you. So like there's always that little thing in the back of my mind. So I think it's not advice at all, so not answering your question, but I am very, very thankful to have someone as a coach in Crew Jeff that will pick fights for me that are always moving up. He's always like, you can do that. You can fight that person. And I'm like, really? Am I ready for that? And he's like, yeah, absolutely. You can do that. So there's been many, many fights where I'm like, I'm not ready for that. That's a terrible idea. And then it turns out generally really, really well. Like there's no fights that I've ever looked back on and been like, why did you make me do that? It's always something that turns out well, because I do trust his judgment that when he tells me I can do something, I can, even if in the back of my mind, I'm like, well, that person's gonna kill you. That's cool. But then we do all the things and we work hard and we train hard and we train smart and all those things, and it comes together. So it's 100% not advice, but that's, I think, what's gotten me to this point is having that. I've made this hand gesture a lot, but those little incremental steps out of my comfort zone,
right,
that have added up to doing something that I'm very proud of in my life.
And now you're the the first ever lion fight women's North American lightweight champion. There's the gold, folks, right there. Wow. Outstanding.
My screen's too small to show it off.
Sorry?
My screen's too small to actually show you properly, but yes.
No, that's awesome, man. And Taylor, congratulations again on winning this. We're looking forward to seeing you fight again on Lion Fight. When is your next fight? Have they booked that yet, or is that?
I am not booked. So as of right now, I am definitely going to Thailand in October to fight for Infusion Reality, but that's the only thing so far this year. Hopefully have an announcement for the summer, though. I'd really like to fight this summer. Right
on. Well, we'll be watching for that. I'm looking forward to seeing you fight again, and I'm going to be interviewing you again on some science-specific interviews.
Yes, amazing. Love that.
On. Thank you very much for your time.
No problem. Have a good night.